Okay, even though you clicked on this video, I'm probably telling you something you already know, and that is organ transplant is extremely expensive. As a matter of fact, if you're not independently wealthy, and I mean by that extremely wealthy, and or have great health insurance or some other plan, organ transplant is going to be kind of impossible. Okay, let's just say it. It's going to be impossible. Someone's got to pay. Some money's got to be changed hands, whether it's yours or the insurance companies. That's just what's got to happen. This is not a free thing, at least in the United States, but we'll get through it. Let's look at a chart right here, and I'll show you some of the figures. Okay, so the first thing you'll see across the top of the chart is this is only an estimated average cost of transplant as of 2020. Now, these are the billed charges per transplant. If you go down the side, you'll see there are many different kinds of transplants, from bone marrow to cornea to heart, intestine, kidney, liver, single lung, double lung, and even down toward the bottom of the chart, which I won't show all of it, you have double organ transplants, heart, lungs, that type of thing, you know, just a mixed organ transplant. However, you can also see that each of these categories of organ transplant are all subdivided across this chart by looking at several different factors. One being the 30-day pre-transplant cost, which there's a lot of cost involved on, you know, getting the evaluation, getting prepped. Oftentimes hospitalizations require pre-transplant. The procurement of the organ itself, that is to going and taking the organ, bringing it back so that it can be used for transplant. The hospital admission itself, obviously any hospital admission is going to be pretty expensive. The physician care, you're talking about extremely qualified, highly qualified specialists in this case, many of which are trained specifically in transplants themselves. The 180 post-transplant discharge itself is listed here, which is a pretty steep cost, and that's just assuming that a lot of appointments, a lot of follow-up testing, a lot of biopsies in the case of heart transplants, whatever, just a lot of testing to see if there's any rejection, any issue, any problems. And of course the post-op medications, prescriptions and such, they're pretty high as well. And that was probably one of the most shocking things for me, even though I was warned about it going in. When we went to pick up my medications on that very first time, and it totaled just for 1 month a little bit over $4,500. Yeah, that was a shock right there. But anyway, these charges here on the medication side are for 1 year supplies. So you're talking about 12 month supplies, that sort of thing. And of course you see the totals out beside that, many of which exceed the $1 million mark. In the case of myself and a heart transplant, we're talking about exceeding the $1.6 million mark. Actually $1.664800 $1 million mark. So yeah, extremely expensive. Now I want to step over here and show you a few more things that you can do, particularly some things you can keep in mind as the bills start rolling in to help to reduce some of the stress, relieve some of the pressure, and to keep you from getting overwhelmed. Okay, so after looking at that, there is no doubt in my mind that transplant can seem overwhelming, particularly the cost of it. And I can still remember the day I received my very first bill in the mail for over $100,000, especially that line that said payment due upon receipt. I was terrified by that, overwhelmed. I thought to myself, I'll never get out from under this. This is going to be impossible. However, over time, I learned a few things, and I'm going to share with you 3 things you need to keep in mind as you're going through the process, as the bills start rolling in, that can hopefully help you not to be so overwhelmed. So here we go. Number 1, the main thing you need to keep in mind is don't panic, okay? I've warned you on the video, I've shown you on the chart, transplant can be extremely expensive. Unless you're just filthy rich, there's no way you're going to pay for this out of pocket anyway. Thankfully, the majority, if not all of us, if we've made it to the point of transplant, we've already got some form of health coverage or insurance or other ways of paying for that. But even if it is left upon you, even if every dime of that is due out of your pocket, don't be overwhelmed by that, because honestly, what you just made a purchase, if you want to call it that, an investment in, is your life. There are many things in life that we get involved with, investment-wise, purchase-wise. Maybe it's a new home, a new car, a new whatever. We buy something, and then a little bit later we begin to think about it, and we say, that wasn't a very good investment, or I don't know that was really worth it. But you will never ever feel that way about your organ transplant. Obviously, life is priceless. Every day, every moment, every breath that you take is priceless. And I promise you, you will never ever regret monetarily going through the transplant process. You already knew that, but I just thought you ought to be reminded of it. So number 1, don't panic. Number 2, and this may surprise you, don't pay, okay? When you get those bills come rolling in, I don't care if it does say due upon receipt, do not pay those bills. You say, well, Jim, that's bad advice. We ought to keep up with our debts. We ought to be willing to, pay what we owe. That's just good morals. That's good manners. That's good everything. Yeah, I agree with that. But what we need to keep in mind is there are several things that occur when the first bill comes in. Number one, that bill may not have been filed with your insurance provider yet, at least not all of it. And so the balance that you're seeing on that very first bill may not be that accurate, because there may not be it may be the case that those charges have not been ran through insurance or other means of paying. It's not been discounted yet. And so when you receive that very first bill, regardless of what it says, don't just sit and write that check. Now, I didn't believe for a moment that any of you were going to be writing those $1.6 million checks or anything. I know I certainly wasn't going to do that. But, just don't pay that. You need to wait. You need to give it time. You need to go ahead and see what the bill is all about. Get an itemized bill if you have to, and go through that best you can, line by line, and determine what charges were legitimate, maybe what were not. Because sometimes, rarely, but sometimes, some of the charges on the bill are just outrageous and they just shouldn't be there. Maybe it's a test that they claim you had that you didn't. Maybe something was coded wrong. Give time for that thing to be processed through insurance and for the itemized list to come out so that you can really see what things are all about. And then even at that point, my first instinct is not to pay the bill. You then in turn contact the facility, whether it's the hospital itself, the doctors, the labs, whoever. You contact those people individually and ask them if they have any kind of discounts up front. Has it been run through the insurance? Are the charges correct? Now, do you have any kind of discounts? Is there any way you can help me? Because a lot of transplant centers, matter of fact, the majority of them, the hospital, at least the facilities, have some form of a charity care type program where, based on your income, which is going to be pretty low if you got bills like this, based on your income, you can probably get some help. I can remember receiving charity care for the first time over at my transplant center, UAB Hospital, and being approved for 100% charity care. Okay, and that was based on my income, obviously, which was really non-existent at the time of transplant, as well as the bills that I had, the expenses that I had, particularly the medical side of things. They just basically go through that. You fill out the application, send them in all the documents they need, hand those over. They look at it and they determined that I could receive 100% charity care. And so what basically happened then is, on top of my insurance payments, on top of any deductions, any type of things that were taken off, the very balance of the bill was then forgiven, basically paid off, they claim, by a charity. I don't know how that really works. I think a lot of it's just write-off, but at least it's called charity care. In addition to that, charity care at UAB Hospital was even better than that, because it did not just exist on the bills that you had that day at the moment. It actually went back, went back 6 months and picked up all previous bills 6 months. So that really helped, because the totality of my hospital stay / treatment / everything around transplant was less than 6 months. So basically my entire transplant was covered. So insurance paid its part, all the deductions were given there, the discounts, that sort of thing, and then charity care picked it up. So definitely check into that before you pay these bills, okay? Because it may be that you can get some kind of a percentage off. It may be that you may get some kind of charity care like this and get even 100% of your bill paid, even retroactive, back 6 months. So definitely check into that. Don't pay a bill before you do that. And then the third thing here I want you to consider, not only, don't panic, don't pay, but the third one here is don't pretend, okay? Don't pretend to need nothing when you need something. You may have family members, friends, co-workers, a lot of times employers, churches, other charity type things around your community may reach out to you and say, how can we help you financially? How can we assist you in this way or that? Don't be that person like I was, who was too proud in the beginning to say, oh, I'm good, don't worry about it, I'll get it, don't worry about it. I'm sitting here looking at this bill laying on my table, $1.6 million, and I'm thinking, I don't need anything. Yeah, right. I did need some help. I did need some assistance. So don't pretend like there's no issue here. Don't pretend like you've got this, because you don't have this. Allow people to assist. Allow people to help you. I know, again, pride doesn't really want me to do that. I'm the type of guy who I've never, to my mindset, at least up until that point, I've never taken any kind of charity from anyone. I've never taken anything from anyone. You know, you just roll. You know, I'm just the average American guy. I go to work every day. I work hard. I try to provide for myself and my family, and then try to help others along the way. And then all of a sudden, I'm the one that needed help. I couldn't pretend like that was not the case. I just had to own up to it and admit it. And a lot of people are definitely willing to help. They were willing to donate to funds. They were willing to, you know, to give money and you know, cash sometimes, even to help to pay some bills around the house, that sort of thing. Even had a few people who I wasn't sure how to get them the help. So I just finally looked at them and said, hey, I tell you what, I don't need any cash right now, but my house payment's coming up if you'd like to assist with that. And I've actually literally torn tickets out of a house payment book and handed to people and said, well, go pay this, you know, whatever. You know, whatever's due, just let people help. This is a financial burden for everyone. This can be overwhelming for anyone, or probably everyone too. It's just something we have to deal with because the cost of transplant is extremely high. However, as I said earlier, it is extremely worth it. So just to recap, 3 things you need to remember. Number 1, don't panic. Number 2, don't pay. And number 3, don't pretend that you don't need help. Okay, with that being said, I hope this video has helped you out in some way. If it has, how about you go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. Maybe consider sharing it out to a friend or family member, someone who could benefit from it as well. And then finally, if you're not already a subscriber to this channel, go ahead and hit the big subscribe button. You'll see pop up here on the screen. It'll be kind of a circle in just a moment, as well as the bell notification when you're offered that. And that way you'll be notified each and every time I put out new content, which I hope to help to advocate, educate, and motivate you as a transplant patient. Until next time, stay stronger, friends.